Imagine a world where a basic necessity, as common as the air we breathe, becomes a symbol of oppression, a weapon of defiance. For centuries, salt has been a simple, life-sustaining mineral. Yet in one pivotal moment in history, this humble commodity transformed into the unlikely spark that ignited a nation's soul. This is the untold story of how the British Empire's control over salt in India became the catalyst for one of the greatest nonviolent revolutions the world has ever seen, forever changing the course of history and leading India towards its hard-won independence. From the dawn of civilization, salt has been more than just a seasoning. It's been a currency, a preservative, a symbol of purity, and an essential component of life itself. Ancient cultures revered it, warriors were paid in it, and entire trade routes were built around its scarcity. In India, salt was freely available, gathered from the vast coastline and inland salt flats, a birthright to its people. It was an integral part of their diet, their rituals, and their economic fabric. No one could have predicted that this vital, everyday substance would one day become the centerpiece of a monumental struggle for freedom against a mighty empire. The arrival of the British East India Company in the 17th century heralded a new era for India. What began as trade slowly morphed into political and economic control. The British, ever shrewd in their pursuit of resources and revenue, soon cast their eyes upon India's abundant salt. They saw not a vital sustenance for the people, but an untapped source of immense wealth. Their aim was simple: monopolize the production and sale of salt, turning a free gift of nature into a taxable commodity, and thus cementing their economic stranglehold over the subcontinent. It was a calculated move, insidious in its simplicity, yet devastating in its implications. By the mid-19th century, the British Raj had formalized its control through the Draconian Salt Acts. These laws made it illegal for Indians to collect, produce, or sell salt independently. Instead, they were forced to buy it from British government depots, often at exorbitant prices, with a heavy tax added. This wasn't merely a tax on luxury, it was a tax on survival. The British justified it as necessary revenue for administration, but its true impact was to impoverish millions, particularly the poorest segments of Indian society. Every grain of salt became a bitter reminder of foreign domination, a daily burden felt in every household across the vast subcontinent. For decades, the salt tax, among other oppressive policies, fueled a simmering resentment. Nationalist sentiments began to grow, with leaders emerging who articulated the injustice of British rule. Yet, the sheer scale of the British Empire, its military might, and the perception of its invincibility often quelled open defiance. People suffered in silence, their anger building like a slow, unstoppable tide. The question lingered: how could an unarmed, subjugated people hope to challenge such a formidable power? What unifying symbol, what act of defiance, could truly galvanize a nation into action? The answer would come from an unexpected source, wielding an unexpected weapon. Enter Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, a figure unlike any other. Having honed his philosophy of satyagraha, truth force, or nonviolent resistance. In South Africa, Gandhi returned to India a revered leader. He understood that true freedom wouldn't come from violence, but from a moral awakening, a collective refusal to cooperate with injustice. His method was revolutionary. Instead of fighting the oppressor with their own tools, he would expose their tyranny by refusing to participate in it. He sought a symbol, a simple act that could resonate with every Indian, regardless of caste, creed, or wealth. He needed to find the perfect catalyst to awaken a sleeping giant. Of all the injustices perpetrated by the British, why did Gandhi choose salt? It wasn't arbitrary. Salt was universal. Rich or poor, Hindu or Muslim, everyone needed salt to survive. Taxing it was an affront to human dignity itself. It was tangible, easily understood, and its production was simple enough for anyone to replicate illegally. More importantly, breaking the Salt Act was a direct challenge to British authority, a symbolic rejection of their right to control a fundamental aspect of Indian life. Gandhi's genius lay in recognizing that the seemingly insignificant could hold immense power, transforming a common mineral into the ultimate weapon of nonviolent defiance. On March 2, 1930, Gandhi wrote a letter to Viceroy Lord Irwin, declaring his intention to break the salt laws. He announced a march from his ashram in Sabarmati to the coastal village of Dandi, a distance of 240 miles, to illegally produce salt. Many, even within his own Congress party, were skeptical, dismissing the idea as childish or ineffective. How could picking up salt challenge an empire? Yet, the world watched, intrigued by this frail, determined man. This wasn't just a march. It was a pilgrimage of freedom, a public declaration that the days of passive submission were over. The countdown to defiance had begun. On March 12, 1930, with 78 chosen followers, Mahatma Gandhi, at 61 years old, began his historic Dandi March. Each day, they walked miles under the scorching sun, their numbers swelling as they passed through villages. Villagers lined the dusty roads, offering water, food, and fervent support. What started as a small group transformed into a river of humanity, a moving testament to a nation's awakening. News of the march spread like wildfire, carried by word of mouth, newspapers, and international media. The seemingly insignificant act of walking to the sea was fast becoming a global spectacle, drawing the world's attention to India's struggle. After 24 days and 240 miles, Gandhi and his weary but resolute followers reached the coast of Dandi on April 5, 1930. Early the next morning, April 6th, Gandhi walked into the shallow waters, performed a ritual bath, and then, with profound symbolism, picked up a lump of natural salt from the mud. With this simple, humble act, he openly defied the British Empire and its unjust laws. He declared, "With this, I am shaking the foundations of the British Empire." It was not the salt itself, but the act of taking it, a direct, public challenge to colonial authority that resonated like a thunderclap across India and beyond. Gandhi's act at Dandi was the signal. Across India, millions responded. They began collecting salt, making it in defiance of the law, selling it openly in markets, and staging peaceful protests. The movement was spontaneous and widespread, involving men, women, and children from all walks of life. The British authorities were caught off guard, bewildered by the scale and nonviolent nature of the rebellion. This was not an armed insurgency they could crush with military might. It was a moral uprising, a collective refusal to be subjugated. The foundations of their empire truly began to tremble under the weight of a nation's quiet resolve. The British reaction, though initially hesitant, soon turned brutal. Thousands of Indians, including Gandhi himself, were arrested. Police batons descended upon peaceful protesters, their nonviolent resistance met with violent force. The Darasan Assault Works raid, in particular, became a chilling testament to British brutality, where unarmed satyagrahis were beaten mercilessly while attempting to seize salt deposits. Yet, this violence only strengthened the resolve of the movement. International observers, including American journalist Webb Miller, documented these atrocities, broadcasting the truth of British oppression to a horrified world. The empire's image began to crumble. The Salt March and the subsequent civil disobedience campaign garnered unprecedented international attention. Newsreels, newspaper articles, and eyewitness accounts from journalists like Webb Miller exposed the stark reality of British colonial rule, a powerful empire brutalizing unarmed people for the crime of collecting salt. The world, still reeling from World War I and witnessing the rise of anti-colonial sentiments, began to openly question the morality of the British Raj. This global spotlight created immense pressure on the British government, eroding its moral authority and turning public opinion against its rule in India. The salt had become a powerful lens through which the world viewed colonial injustice. While the Salt March didn't immediately dismantle the British Empire, its impact was profound and psychological. It shattered the myth of British invincibility and instilled a new sense of confidence and unity among Indians. It proved that nonviolent resistance could challenge even the mightiest power. The fear that had long paralyzed the populace began to dissipate, replaced by a collective courage. Indians realized their own strength, their own voice, and their collective power to defy injustice. The Salt March transformed a passive populace into an active participant in their own destiny, laying crucial groundwork for future struggles and, ultimately, independence. The Salt March was not the end of India's struggle, but it was a monumental turning point. It ignited the spark that would eventually lead to the Quit India movement and, finally, to India's independence in 1947. Gandhi's masterstroke, choosing salt as his weapon, demystified the fight for freedom, bringing it down to the level of the common person. It demonstrated that even the most ordinary elements of life could become powerful symbols of resistance against tyranny. The story of the Salt March remains a testament to the power of nonviolence, the resilience of the human spirit, and how a handful of salt became the crucible for a nation's destiny. The journey of India's independence is a complex tapestry woven with countless threads of courage, sacrifice, and unwavering determination. Yet, amidst the grand narratives of political struggle and armed rebellion, it was the humble grain of salt that emerged as a silent, yet profound catalyst. It taught the world that true power lies not in armies or empires, but in the collective conscience of a people united against injustice. The Salt March proved that even the most ordinary among us, when spurred by a righteous cause, can shake the foundations of empire and forge the path to freedom. The legacy of Salt remains a powerful reminder that sometimes the simplest acts can create the most profound revolutions.